a true risk management man.
For a one-eye.
What happened to your teeth?
I'm not sure if it was just eating too much roadkill or whatever, but
Yeah, one came out.
yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the In My World podcast. Today, we have a very special guest on board. A few weeks ago, we went to a cocktail fundraiser event for 20 Talk and had this strange man in the background, in the crowd, calling out a few things and having a chat to us. And after the event, we had a chat and ended up discovering a very special story. We're about to explore something that we probably haven't ever touched on before, and that's a story of someone's 5-year journey traveling around Australia with camels. And not only that, he's had a very interesting life in the business world in Perth. But yeah, I want to introduce John Elliot, who's going to be introducing us a little bit about himself.
Hello. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a strange story. I'm not sure about special, but it's definitely strange. So I was in business, got an insurance broking company here in Perth, and 2018, I decided I was going to go and take on an adventure, and I had no idea what kind of adventure I was going to take on, and I just knew it had to be under my own steam, and I started making preparations to leave the business world for a prolonged period of time, and someone mentioned camels at dinner one night, and the next day I went into the office and Googled how do I buy a camel, and what started as a little idea of maybe I could take him for a bit of a walk around Western Australia ended up being one of the longest camel treks in Australian history, going from North Queensland down to the southern tip of Tasmania and then through 7 of the 10 major Australian deserts. So it took me about 4 years to walk it, year and a bit to train and prepare for it, and now back into insurance. So
Yeah, right. So insurance broker turned camel,
it's
adventurer.
It's an odd CV.
Yeah, right. And so I can only imagine that there's a few interesting conversations that go on around the workplace, having told people that story.
Well, the big thing, everyone's always goes down the why route. Like, how do you go from that to this here? Like, that's a pretty extreme jump. Outside looking it may have been considered like a sudden jump, but it was really 18 months in the planning to take on the adventure, and even though I didn't know what form it was, I'd kind of gotten to a point in business where I was going quite well, and I had the nice cars and the fancy house and run around. I had part ownership in a nightclub for a while.
So how old were you at that point?
So hitting in my early 30s.
So early 30s, and you're doing quite well with your business. Like it's not just a normal business. You're doing pretty well. I think the title I read on an article said Playboy millionaire humps his way around Australia on a camel.
Yes.
So
it's one of the most interesting headlines I'll ever get. Mum didn't agree with it so much, but no. But it was actually a bit of a lead up into the thought process behind wanting to take on an adventure. I think I'd, in order to put myself through the amount of hours and work and sacrifice everything in order to get to that point, I'd always sold myself that somehow just down the road was better than where I am now. So if I work my ass off, I can have all those things, and that will unlock some, next level of life. And I kind of got enough of what I had sold myself and realised it wasn't what I'd told myself. I'd kind of got there and had all these things, and there was still something that wasn't quite right. And I had a bit of a crisis of, who am I at that point? So
money didn't buy the happiness?
It did not.
Did all the people out there, did it buy the happiness?
No, look, it was a good life, but I just thought this isn't the kind of, I wouldn't necessarily like to be the 50-year-old that poured out at the end of continuing like that. So I had a few friends around me at the time that had gone through some pretty major challenges. So I had a friend of mine that was worth about 40 million, lost it all in 9 months. So I was right next to him during that challenge. I had a few friends go through divorce, a couple of friends go through some health concerns. And I kind of realised with the way I was living my life, that teaching moment was going to come to me. because every single one of those friends, they would come back to me and go, "Oh, it turns out this was the best thing. It was a blessing in disguise."
Right.
And you're like, "Yeah, but surely you'd rather just like lose 20 million and get half the lesson." You're like, you
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
you don't have to lose the whole
So you
thing.
did a preemptive kind of strike on it.
Yeah. And so I went, "Oh, well, the lesson's coming. So I just want to take on the most challenging, brutal experience in an environment that I have no place in being." Because I started to believe that these people were actually getting something, that it was a blessing in disguise. So I can wait for the universe to bring me those lessons, or I can go out there and grab them for myself. And I thought that it would be more brutal if I waited for it, in partying too hard, working my ass off, engaging in a lot of high risk activities.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm really, really positioned.
You're setting yourself up for a big failure.
Yeah.
And so before we get into all of the, the camel ride and how that all started, what did your 20s look like? And, early 30s, running a successful business. You said you own a nightclub. You said you were involved in, different things. What did that look like, and what kind of person were you during that period?
Yeah, I think during the 20s, once I actually started engaging in my industry, during the 20s was very much making a lot of the sacrifices to set up for the future. So, I tried cocaine for the first time in my life when I was 20, travelling around in Spain. And I went, "Oh, that stuff's pretty good. I'm not going to touch that until I built what I've come here to build." And so I never touched that again until my early 30s. So I was very kind of dialed in and engaged to what I was doing. But by the time I got to about 30, just before 30,
I'm 30 now.
Oh,
I could get the cocaine now.
Yeah. All right. I have built. Now let's enjoy. So I think that's where I was probably coming to that. I wouldn't be necessarily happy with a 50-year-old that pours out of continuing this kind of life.
Right.
So, no one wants to be that 50-year-old guy that's still in the club.
Nah, you don't.
Trying to hit on something.
At like 3 a.m.,
No.
everyone's kind of left and you're like hitting on them and you're like, oh,
There's a
you
point.
don't want to be that person.
There's a point where it's cool. You're like, "Oh man, this guy's really nailing it." Into the 30s, oh, he's doing well. You're still doing that in your 40s. They're like, "Oh, okay, you should be bringing that in." And if you're 50-something still doing it, you're like,
yeah, even for me, I used to do a bit of partying, and you have your big nights out where you'll be like 4 or 5 a.m. and it's the kind of dregs of the night, and you're trying to keep it going.